guys, how's it going? I'm doing something a little bit different today. There are so many books on my shelves that I just don't bring up often, or they just don't fit into a lot of conversations. And I'm also a really big fan of those games where like you get a random topic and you have to try to talk about it for 10 minutes with no prep. Like those like party games and stuff. So I thought I would combine those two things for today's video. I'm going to use a random number generator to get a random book from my shelves, and I'm going to talk about it for, I decided 10 minutes straight. I don't know if that's an okay amount of time. I haven't practiced or anything, but I think that I want to do 2 books. So if I do 10 minutes each, plus an intro and outro, that's like a 25-minute video. That feels reasonable to me. We'll see. Maybe I'll realize this is way too easy and next time I'll have to do 1 book and have it much longer. Maybe I'm underestimating it and I'm gonna need to make it shorter. Who knows? I know the point of these challenges is that there's 0 prep, but I will make the exception for me to look up the main characters' names if I don't remember them off the top of my head first, because otherwise half the time is just gonna be me trying to remember somebody's name. I am not good at remembering names, so it just makes more sense that way. But I think this will be fun. I really love rambling. So enough of intro rambling, let's get to book rambling. I pulled up my random number generator. I have 14 main shelves with books on them. The other 2 shelves are other stuff. So a random number between 1 and 14. 13! Lucky 13. That shelf right there, I'll insert a picture for you. I just counted and there are 30 books on that shelf, so a random number between 1 and 30 is 26. Look at that. So the first random book I landed on was Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. I'm really glad. I miscounted the first time and I thought that it was the second book. And I was nervous about how I was going to talk about the second book for 10 minutes without spoiling anything from the first. But luckily I just miscounted and it was actually the first book. Is her name like Carew or something? Carew. And the love interest's name. Is it Akiva? Yeah, there he is. Okay. Alright, starting my 10-minute timer now. Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor is the first book in the, I'm sure the trilogy is just called Daughter of Smoke and Bone, as far as I know. Yeah, because on the back it says the other 2 books. Sequel to Daughter, final book in this, Daughter, that is such small writing, oh my gosh. It's an image of the cover, very small, with a small tagline underneath. Anyway, in the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy, this is the first book by Laini Taylor. I love Laini Taylor. I don't remember if I read this one or Strange the Dreamer first. I want to say I read Strange the Dreamer first, but I could be wrong about that. But I absolutely love her writing style. It's very flowery, very magic feeling, and I really enjoy that. This series is about a girl named Carew. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I don't think it's like Carew. I think it's Carew. Either way, you know who I'm talking about. I don't have time to look it up right now. I'm on a timer. I think that she is an art student. She's someone artsy and she's going to school. I think she's an art student, but I don't know the specifics off the top of my head. And I have the feeling it takes place in Prague. I also might be wrong about that, but I always in my head think Peru because Carew in Prague, and it's not in Peru. I don't think. Maybe that's the reason I always think of Peru. No, why? I don't think it takes place in Peru. I think it takes place in Prague because I feel like I remember reading the word, like, you know when you remember seeing a word on the page because you enjoy its spelling? I love the way that Prague is spelled. So that's irrelevant to what the book is about. So she is part of this, I think she's raised by these monster creatures or something. And she has blue hair. I don't remember if I said that already or not. She has blue hair and it's naturally blue. And as somebody who doesn't currently, but frequently has blue hair, big fan of that. That would be cool. She, like, runs errands a lot of time for these other, like, monsters and creatures and stuff. And she's, like, part of this real world, but she seems human from what I remember. And then something weird keeps happening I don't remember what it is, what the weird thing that keeps showing up is, but she's on errands looking into whatever it is. Oh my gosh, it's been like... When did I read this book? I'm just going to stare at a wall and try to remember, so because this is a times challenge, I'm not going to know the answer. I'm going to guess like 7 or 8 years since I've read this book. And I've read a lot of other books since then, and some details are not as fresh in my mind as they were. But she has to go and figure out what these weird things mean, and then she meets this angel. I don't remember if she knows right away that he's an angel, or if she finds out that he's an angel, or she just thinks he's something weird. And maybe the other people can't see him or can't see his true form. There's something weird going on. The problem with getting this book is it's a weird book. And as you explain things out loud, it's like, is it really that I'm completely off the mark? Or is this just a weird idea of a story? And weird in a good way. I love this book. I think I said already that I rated it 5 stars. I definitely thought it. I don't know if I said it out loud. But anyway. Yeah, she meets this character and he ends up being the love interest. And her, like, family, her group are, like, the demons. And he's, like, an angel. And it's not, like, very biblical. It's more, like, fantasy angels and demons. And there's something... Why do they have to go to the place? You know what? It doesn't matter. There's a times challenge going on. I'm almost halfway done though. So that is exciting. So my thoughts on this book, we can talk about that for a little bit. Like I said, loved the writing style. I really love Laini Taylor's voice as an author. I will admit that I didn't love the way the trilogy ended. I loved the first book. I really liked the second book. And I feel like the third book just took a completely different direction. It was very, like, heading in one place, and then there was a couple of shifts. And then I feel like the ending, a lot of the important stuff kind of happened off page. And a lot of the things that I didn't really care about came to the forefront. I might reread this series sometime, actually. I've been meaning to reread Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. And probably Muse of Nightmares, so I'm going to reread Strange the Dreamer. But Strange the Dreamer is one of my all-time favorite books. And I started reading it before I started annotating books. And I would really have loved to, like, read it, annotate it, put sticky tabs on my favorite places. If I had that, if this was a book I annotated, I'm sure this challenge would be a lot easier. Maybe fingers crossed for next time I get lucky and land on one of those. But this world was so, like, dark and magic and compelling. Like I said, a lot of it is about demons, and there's so many strange creatures, and I'm a big fan of that stuff. I really like the darker side of fantasy. I love all fantasy, but specifically when it gets to, like, you know, the darker stuff, the scarier stuff, like, those kind of vibes. I really like it. I think that this world was really well described. Like, the whole time I was reading it, I could picture it in my head. Like, even now, I don't remember a lot of the specifics, and I don't remember almost anyone's name, but I can still picture quite a few of the characters in my head, and just the way that they were described, they were so vivid so quickly. Hi, Comet. Her, like, guardian, her father figure, whoever he is, is his name Brimstone? I think so. Or she describes it as Brimstone. The name of Brimstone just invokes such an image in my mind. And I remember that as soon as he was described on the page, like, he's in my brain. So I think that was really cool. Yes, Comet. I'm doing a times challenge right now, though, so I'll pet you while I talk. Yeah, I think that this book was one of the earlier, like, YA... See, usually I would restart the clip because I pronounced YA really weird there and stumbled over the words, but I cannot. I think this is one of the first, like, YA fantasy with heavy romance that I read and enjoyed, because I don't like a lot of romance in my fantasy novels. I don't like a lot of romance in general, but especially in fantasy, because I love fantasy so much, and because so much of what I love about fantasy is the world, the creatures, the magic, like a lot of the like big picture stuff, I don't really want to spend a lot of time focusing on two people's romance, if that makes sense. Like, I love focusing on characters. I'm a big character person. But I think that I more prefer how the character interacts with the world around them and interacts with the magic and all the fantasy elements. I don't want to read something as mundane as, like, people falling in love. Like, that's boring. People can do that any day of the week in the real world. Like, give me something fantasy. And especially in YA fantasy romance, a lot of times the fantasy a lot of times the romance takes over. The fantasy takes a back seat. Again, I would usually cut that, but this video isn't going to have any editing. Or, like, minimal oof. Okay, anyways, sorry. I would have also cut that out. Okay, stop getting off track. I completely lost my train of thought. I was talking about, how in especially YA, fantasy and romance. I don't think this is considered romantasy, but that term wasn't really around or wasn't really being used when this book came out, so maybe. Either way, I felt like this one, the romance was very tied into the fantasy of it all. Like, it wasn't just, these two characters and their romance kind of taking a side, like, being its own side thing, and then the fantasy elements and everything I love being another thing, because it was so integral to the conflict between the angels and the demons, and because it was so tied into, the politics, I guess, of the world and the greater conflict, and just how the world was structured in general, and how we were learning about the world through these two characters coming together. I really liked it much more than I think I've ever liked any other fantasy romance. And to be honest, I don't really love the love interest that much. Actually, you know what, I'm saying that, I barely remember him, which makes me feel like I don't care enough about him. But that's kind of ideal, as somebody who doesn't care much about the romance, having, like, his romance, like, his role in the romance. I'll at least finish my thought. Having him having less memories of him and having more memories of the world, the story as a whole, the main character, I think is kind of one of the reasons why I like it so much. Did that make sense? I lost my train of thought halfway through when the alarm went off. How did I do? That was actually a lot harder than I expected. I think that because it was a book that I haven't read in so long, and I was struggling so much to remember details and call upon, like, specifics, while also trying to not have any dead air, trying not to stop talking, and then also stumbling over my words and trying not to let it bother me or spend too long correcting myself, that was harder than I thought. But I feel like it at least went okay. Maybe I need more practice, because I really like the idea of this. So if you have any feedback, feel free to leave it down below, because I might do this again. But speaking of doing it again, let's get the second book. Random number between 1 and 14 is 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Ooh, okay. Ooh, 10 of the books on the shelf are a French fantasy series, and I've only actually read the first 3 books of the series. So, wish me luck. Alright, random number between 1 and 31. 19. Ooh, wait, is that... Okay, no, we're good. Where the Red Fern Grows by Wilson Rawls. I am feeling so much more confident about this for some reason. I read this book when I was in grade 6, so I would have been 11 years old. Okay. It's a much shorter book. I read it a much longer time ago. But I think I could do it. Yeah, for sure. Totally. Alright, 10-minute timer starting now. Where the Red Fern Grows by Wilson Rawls. I read this when I was in 6th grade, so that was when I was 11 years old. But I still remember this book very vividly, and I think that kind of speaks to how much this impacted me. This broke my heart so badly. I remember crying so much, because I read this in school, that the teacher actually had to take me aside and like tell me to like, you know, get my shit together. Not really. She was actually very kind about it. But like, she's like, you have to stop crying now. We have to, you know, learn in school now. But anyways, this is about a young boy named Billy. He is, how old is he? I don't know. I'm going to say like 12 or something. I'm kind of guessing there. But he is a young boy, lives on the farm. It takes place, I don't know. I have no idea, actually. A while ago. And he doesn't have a lot of friends. He's kind of far away from his neighbors and stuff. And he saves up his money to get these 2 hunting dogs. And he saves up his money by like selling berries to like the local farmer, and he goes down and like catches minnows in the stream. Like that time period where that's a reasonable way to save up your money to buy 2 dogs. And he is training them as hunting dogs. So I guess trigger warning before we get into this. This book is a lot about hunting. There's a lot of, you know, killing of animals, stuff like that. I'm not going to get into all of that because I am on a timer here, and I think that the hunting debate is too long for this particular challenge. But I'm not somebody who likes hunting or the concept of hunting. I understand hunting for survival, as a way to feed yourself, as a way to clothe yourself, stuff like that. Like, I understand the necessity of it in certain times, places, people, etc. I don't think that in this book it's quite as... Like, this one is kind of more for sport. They do use all the pieces of the animal, like, they're farmers, so he uses, you know, the meat that he catches to feed the family, and, you know, like, they make hats out of the coons that they skin and stuff like that, but it's very much sport hunting, so trigger warning for that. Also, the dogs die at the end. That's not a spoiler, because the story is the entire life of the dogs, so the book ends when the dogs die, but you do watch them die, and it is the most, like, soul-shattering thing. I cried so much. And it wasn't the first time that I read, like, a really traumatic, you know, on-page animal death. Like, my dad read John Steinbeck's The Red Pony to me when I was, like, 5 years old. But this one just hit me because throughout the book, the author does such a great job at really, like, showing the deep connection between this trio, like between the boy and his dogs, between the 2 dogs, the way that the dogs work together, the way that the boy like trains the dogs. Like, you see them from the time he like gets them as puppies, raises them, teaches them how to hunt. You know, they go to their first like hunting tournament, I don't know what it's called, you know, like their whole lives and stuff. And it's just such, aside from all of the sad stuff, it's a very beautiful story about just a boy and his dogs. And I don't know if I'd recommend it, because I think that if you're such an animal lover that this book will really speak to you, you're such an animal lover that a lot of this book will bother you, right? Like I said, I read this when I was 11 years old. I don't know if I would feel the same way if I reread it now. I would actually love to reread. Maybe I should reread this book and like see how it holds up and how much like I remember of it, because I still remember so many details about this book. And it's been, you know, over 20 years since I read it, but I can still remember one of the dog's death scenes, because the dogs don't die at the same time, because, I don't know, that just seems unrealistic. But when the first dog dies, I can still fully visualize the entire scene, like start to finish, of him realizing there was something wrong and Billy looking for the dog the moment that the surviving dog finds the other one. Like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry. Don't cry. We don't have time for crying. We're doing a challenge right now. But yeah, just this book I think would be very difficult for an animal lover, but I think that you have to be an animal lover to really appreciate this book in the way that really stands out, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think that this was very of the time. I don't know if it holds up, like I said, but it was just such I don't know, it was a very like deep connection. And as an animal lover, the connection between people and animals is something that I love exploring in books. And the connection of the animals with each other. Like, the dogs are such a team. And this is, like, it's not a... Like, I read it as a kid, but it's not a kid's book. I actually don't know what the target audience is for this book. I don't have time to look it up. But, like, it's realistic. Like, it's not, like, talking dogs or anything like that. It's just animals and how complex animals truly are. So them together, like the two dogs' relationships and how much they rely on each other and how much they work together. Like, it was so cool to see that explored in a more grown-up way, because especially as an 11-year-old, a lot of the other like media and stories that were directed towards me was like talking animals or like more humanized animals, which is, you know, obviously fine, but this was one of the first ones where the animals were just animals, but not in a simplified way, if that makes sense. But yeah, I thought that this book did such a great job at every single like emotional moment that as someone with animals you have with your animal. Like, there were times when like the dogs were sick and he was taking care of them. There were times when he was in danger and the dogs, you know, were trying to help him. Like, it was really, really beautiful, their relationship. And I really liked seeing throughout their life, like, you know, the dogs as puppies, and then seeing the dogs kind of like grow in confidence in what they were doing. And then again, the dogs towards the end of their life and how everything, stop, don't cry, do not, you don't have time for this. We have almost 3 minutes left. But yeah, I really liked this story. And also, I'm not going to say that I was a lonely kid, because I had friends. I had two brothers. Like, I socialized some. But he is such a lonely little boy. And once he gets the dogs, he's not anymore. Like, he finally has his companions. And I think that as a little kid that often just had their nose buried in a book, a lot of that really spoke to me. And a lot of that made me really, like, empathize with Billy, even though he was so unlike me. You know, like, he's this little farm boy catching minnows in a river. I mean, my grandfather's a farmer, and I'm sure I never caught minnows. Either way, yeah, this book really stood out to me. It really had a huge impact on me. And like I said, the fact that I'm still thinking of it, the fact that I can still remember it, the fact that I can still picture so many scenes, I can still remember so many details, really emphasized how much this hit me. And just how sad it made me. Like, I remember thinking that it was so unfair that the dogs couldn't live forever. And I knew like, animals couldn't live forever. And, you know, I'd read plenty of other stories where animals died. And I never had a pet death up until then. But this felt like one of my own pets dying, because I was just so connected to these dogs. And I just wanted them to live forever. And it was just so unfair that they don't. And, like, the world is unfair. And as an 11-year-old, like, that just seems like a much bigger revelation than how it sounds. Like, you know, I don't know. So, I think that this book, I wish that I had a more adult perspective of it, because so many of my memories of it are very, like, emotional, tied to the fact that it was something I never really experienced before, like the fact that I was a child. I really don't know if, I mean, I'm sure that it's still gonna, like, come across, you know, like, the bond and everything will still come across really well. And I might question nowadays more of, like, you know, the hunting and the, like, kind of cruelty of it all. Like, there's a scene, one of the first times that he's teaching the dogs how to hunt, he sets a trap and he catches a raccoon himself and he kills it himself so that he can, like, drag its body around the yard for the dogs to, like, follow its trail and stuff like that. And I think he's like, oh, okay, that was 10 minutes. I'll finish my thought. Yeah, like, it's written in a kind of cruel way, but as a kid, I wasn't really thinking that deep about it. I think that it might be hard to set that aside to reread it nowadays, but I really do want to reread it. I might do that. I feel like I did better with that one. I don't feel like I said as much. But it's kind of a blur because I was just talking and not thinking about what I was saying, so I wasn't honestly really listening to anything I just said. I feel like maybe I need a little more practice. I should have had a game plan going in. I really took the zero prep thing to the extreme, but maybe next time I should at least have in my head like, okay, I should talk about the synopsis and then talk about my reading experience, and maybe I'll talk about the characters. Like, maybe a little bit of thought could help. But I enjoyed it. Let me know if it was enjoyable to watch. And I feel like that was a fun way to just talk about like random books on my shelf. Because how often does Where the Red Fern Grows come up in my normal content? And I guess Daughter of Smoke and Bone comes up every now and then, I guess. But not really. So yeah, that was actually kind of fun. I would do that again sometime. I mean, let me know. If everybody hates it, then I won't, because that would be silly. Well, I might do it one more time to redeem myself, because I feel like I could do better. Either way, that's enough rambling on this rambling video. If you guys enjoyed it, please hit the like button to let me know, and subscribe to stay up to date with the rest of my videos. I post new videos once a week, usually reading or writing related. So I hope to see you guys next time, and until then, have a great day. Bye!